January the 7th, 2021. Happy New Year to everyone. This is Dan Hook and Evan Barker with our podcast from our retail store here at Cave Run Lake at Hook Outdoors. And this is the first episode of the year of Get Outdoors with Hook Outdoors as far as our fishing reports go. And we'll get right into it with the lake conditions and such. Right now, the lake here at Cave Run sits at 726.7 feet of elevation, which is basically 2.5 feet above winter pool. They are pulling it right now at 3,511 cubic feet a second, which is a pretty good little pool. Probably about, if you want to figure, probably about half throttle, maybe a little bit more than half throttle. The lake temps sit at 40 to 41 degrees for the most part. But now you get up around the flats, and for some reason they set it around 38 or 39 degrees. The water is stained overall, but you'll have better water, down around the dam. And then the further south you go, especially when you get around the bend from Zilpo and you get to Clay Lake and the mouth of the river, it starts getting less and less clarity as far as that goes. There have been a few people out crappie fishing with the mild temps we've had of late. From what I'm hearing, they're finding the crappie sitting at around 20 feet of water. They're on brush or vertical wood. Seems like channel breaks or intersections between creeks and we just have two channels intersecting. That seems to be a pretty good spot. You probably won't find any of the installed fish attractors in 20 foot of water, especially this time of year. Most of the ones that people have right now are ones that they have put in themselves, because most of those attractors that Fish and Wildlife and so forth put in, they just weren't put in that deep, because at summer pool those things would be in 25 or 30 foot of water at summer pool, and they didn't put them in that deep. But the main lake's been putting out quite a few fish, and even up in the North Fork and Poppin' Rock area have been really good. But with this rain and such and all the runoff we've had here lately, it's got it kind of murked up there, so it's kind of put the dampers on that. But they're still catching fish off the main lake here. Catfish, there's not really been anything going on here on the main lake. There's been some pretty good action in the spillway, but now that they've opened up the flow again, that's kind of shut that bite down. It was pretty much a live bait deal, goldfish, suckers, shiners, shad, that kind of thing. I don't know exactly what their release schedule is at the spillway, but I'd imagine they'll probably keep running it pretty hard until they get it back down pretty close to winter pool. And given the rate that they're doing it right now, I look for that to probably be toward the first of the week, something like that. Could be sooner, but that's just kind of my opinion on it. Again, haven't heard anything on the main lake as far as catfish goes. And speaking of the spillway, we'll just go ahead and touch on that while we're here. There had been a pretty good crappie bite there. A lot of guys were catching crappie off the wall whenever the flow was, back down around 500 to 700. They were still catching some walleye, that kind of thing. There was even, I'd even heard of a few smallmouth being caught down toward the lower end. That was kind of an oddity. But, the spillway is a pretty good place to fish if the water's in decent shape down there. There's just a real diverse variety of fish there to catch. The muskie, not a lot of guys out, but just from what I'm hearing, it's just a standard wintertime stuff here on Cave Run. It's pretty much a sucker bite or a glide bait deal. There's been a few fish caught on the bigger bladed spinner bites, but that's just just kindly been the trend for the last few weeks from what I'm hearing. Like the big lunging magnums and, those bigger bladed spinner baits like that. And of course, the sucker bite. There's a certain number of people here that when it gets this time of year, that's when they really seem to catch them, because that's kind of their deal. They just really know how to rig those suckers, and they know where to go as far as that goes. And just from what we're hearing here at the shop, seems like the deeper edges of what's left over on the weed beds, that just kind of seems the areas where these guys are focusing on. Evan is going to fill us in on some luck he's had bass fishing here at Cave Run, and then he's got a tournament coming up this weekend on Laurel, and he's going to talk about that a little bit and let us know how his pre-fishings went and kind of what his plans are for the weekend, if things are going to change or that kind of thing. So let's see what Evan's got to say here.
So really, to my surprise, it's the first time I've said this in a while, the bass fishing at Cave Run's actually pretty good this week. Me and a buddy, we went out on Monday evening, and we caught a 4 and a 5 pounder. And it's no surprise, or it's no secret this time of year the fish are going to be deep. They're going to be on brush piles, rock piles if you can find them, deep channel swing banks, chunk rock banks, anywhere not crazy deep, not anything like 40, 50 feet of water. But, fishing brush piles and, 15 to 20 feet, or fishing a chunk rock bank and, 20 to 25. But, with the water temperature being down and a little bit of watercolor being in, I really think that the watercolor coming in kind of helped the bass just a little bit. And, they're going to be eating slow, fishing. You're going to want to fish baits like, a big jig, like a big football jig, or, dragging like a Carolina rig, or, maybe dragging a big shaky head, or, on the finesse end, throwing something like a drop shot, or if you're on those chunk rock banks or channel swing, something like that, throwing a Ned rig. But really anything slow right now, with the water temperatures, trying to dip down into the upper 30s. But, predominantly, around the dam where all the chunk rock and all that stuff is, the water's going to be a little bit warmer. It'll be about, from what I've seen Monday, a degree or two difference between, around the dam to the flats. Because, when I was out there, it was really sunny, so, the rock was warming up. So, every hour the water temperature would warm up, a quarter of a degree or, half a degree. By the end of the day, we was seeing, water temperatures jumping up from 40 to 41 up to maybe 42 or low 43s. But, on the flats, offshore, or anything like that, the water temperature is going to stay pretty consistent, around the 39 to 40 mark. So that's pretty much what the bass are doing on Cave Run. And, to kind of get into the tournament I'm fishing this weekend, yesterday I went down to Laurel Lake. It's down, just straight down I-75 in Corbin. And it's a smaller lake than Cave Run. It's only 5,600 acres. But, it's home to some really good bass fishing at the right time. You have a good mix of all three species, spots, largemouth, and smallmouth. And the thing about Laurel, is, like Cave Run, we have all three species, but, you can really only formulate a winning pattern off of the largemouth here. But when you go down to Laurel or Cumberland or something like that, you can make a winning pattern out of all three different species. So, there's kind of three different spectrums of what you can target down there. You can run up the river and you can fish for largemouth and a few spots, or you can stay, on the main lake and target, specifically spots or smallmouth or something like that. But, I went down yesterday, had a pretty tough practice, only got a few bites, but, that's how it's going to be in the winter. The water temperature was in the low 40s down there, which, for a lake that deep, the max depth in that lake is like 350 feet. So it's deep all around. It sets up similar to Cumberland. It's not like Cave Run where, Cave Run you've got flats that come up and, 20 feet of water, or, even 5, 10 feet of water. Basically that whole lake, with the exception of, the backs of creeks or just a couple of humps that come up, most of the lake's in, 30 to 150 feet of water. So the water temperature is not going to fall as slow as it does, or as fast as it does here at Cave Run. So, just to see that water temperature down, to 43 to 44 degree water, that was kind of a shock to me. I was kind of expecting 47 to 50 in that ballpark. But just got to take what it throws at me. It's had a tough practice, so I'm just going to go in with an open mind, fish what I like to do. I'm gonna try and cover as much water as I can, fish Alabama rig, crankbait, something like that, jerkbait, fish.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit different. Like say you can get dialed into a slow moving bite like a jig or a Carolina rig or something like that.
Right.
And you won't cover near as much water. But if you go into a tournament like I'm going to, where I ain't got a clue what they're doing down there, I can go and throw, my confident baits like an Alabama rig or a crankbait or a jerkbait or something like that, just so I can cover more water in 8 hours and, have more of an opportunity to catch one or two or hopefully five.
Right.
But, if we can come up with a pattern and, if I see, that they're eating that jerkbait, if I give that jerkbait like a 5-second pause and they're eating it, I'll know to maybe slow down and maybe I can start fishing a jig or, fish that jerkbait extremely slow.
Right.
But, if I start noticing that, say they're eating my jerkbait when I'm just jerking the crap out of it, moving it really fast, I might know that they're wanting to eat a little bit quicker, and that's when I might want to pick up a crankbait or an Alabama rig or something like that. So, just playing it by ear Saturday and, kind of noticing what's going on, what the fish are doing, that's going to be the key to success.
Does the, where there's so many deep places there in Laurel, I guess that eliminates a lot of that eliminates a certain amount of water right off the bat, doesn't it?
Not as much as you'd think. The banks down there, they still, grade up and, they're still, you're not fishing. There are bluff banks down there that just drop into, 100 feet of water.
Yeah.
And, you never know. I might end up throwing a blade bait or something like that, or something like that, or throwing a jerkbait or an Alabama rig down, something like that, just to see if they're there. But there's more shallow water down there than people think. You've got banks that, grade up, and they flatten out in about 40 feet of water. It's kind of what I noticed, 40 to 50.
Like a shelf.
And then they drop down into, 100 to 150 feet. So, they have shelves that go up that are shallower.
Right.
But, dominantly it's an extremely, deep lake. And it sets up different from Cumberland too, because at Cumberland, most of the banks are just, at like a, like a 70 to probably an 80, maybe sometimes like a straight down 90-degree angle bank. With chunk rock, table rock, and even the slate down there on the banks, they're extremely steep. But at Laurel, the banks are, with the exception of the bluff walls and a few other banks, they're a lot more. They have a lot more shallower slope to the bank, so they fall off a little bit shallower. But then when you get off the bank, about sometimes 40 yards, 50 yards, something like that, then that's when they drop straight down into 80 to 150 feet. So we're just gonna go play it by ear, and we can cover a lot of water down there because of how small the lake is. It's only 5,600 acres,
right.
So it's no big deal. If we run, I don't know, say if we start fishing mid-lake very first thing, around the dam or something like that, it's no big deal to, make a decision and say, hey, let's just run all the way up the river and see what we can get up there. It's a little bit different, Cumberland, where I'm way more used to fishing Cumberland. I've been down there 100 or so times fishing.
Right.
And I've only been to Laurel like 4 or 5 times.
Right.
Like Cumberland is so big, if you're down by the dam, you can't just say, hey, let's just go run up the river because, it's 70 miles up there.
Yeah.
But at Laurel, it's only 10 miles,
Right.
From the mid-lake up to the river, it's only like 10 miles. So we're just going to run and gun as much as we can. I'm just going to go in there. If I get a gut instinct, I'll just pick it up and I'll just throw it. That's how I'm going to fish Saturday.
Will the weather play a part in, I know you said you're going in with an open mind, but is the weather going to be a factor on whether it is, warms up and it's sunny or whether it just stays cool and cloudy all day? Is that going to change your strategy a little bit?
I think with the weather that they're giving on Saturday, it'll help us out some because they're giving, like yesterday when I was down there pre-fishing, it was just 35 degrees.
Clammy all day.
Windy and cloudy all day. And it was cold. It was cold. I'll be the first to admit it got a little bit rough at some point. But the thing I'm liking about Saturday is they're giving, which, it could change 4 or 5 times between now and tournament time. But right now they said AM clouds and the sun will come out, later on in the day. So that's kind of keeping me positive about running up, maybe running up the river or something like that with the
Right.
if the sun comes out, them largemouth or some maybe even spots might pull up onto the bank, because what will happen is when the sun comes out, even if it's 35 degrees, that sun's still going to feel a lot warmer. Like I'll give an example. Like Monday, me and Jay were out here the day we caught him pretty decent on Cave Run, and we were fishing down a bank, and it was like 45 degrees, but there wasn't no wind, and the sun was just beaming down on us.
Yeah.
And it was hot. Like
Yeah,
it got
sure.
hot. Like our backs,
Sure.
our backs were like hot. And so
Yeah.
when I had to take jackets off. So what that does the same thing to the rocks up on the bank. Because if you're going down a chunk rock bank and the sun's just beaming down on them,
Right.
the sun's doing the same thing to those rocks that it was doing to mine and Jay's back. It's just beating them up.
And if that wind isn't just whipping through there, it allows that it won't pull the heat out. I guess kind of like if you think in the mind of like a heat pump or some kind of HVAC system. Yeah, if it's a pretty calm day and you got some good high sun, it really doesn't matter the time of year. The sun's got some power to it, and especially now, where we've passed the winter solstice or whatever, and the sun's moving back north. Every week you can tell a difference in the heat and everything and all that.
So if the sun gets out, and I'm really hoping it does, so if the sun gets out and starts beaming down on some of the rock banks and starts heating that up, what those fish will do, or what I'm really hoping they'll do, is they'll move up and they'll get right on that rock, because even under the water, that rock will still be putting off heat from where it's getting beamed on by the sun above water. So it's a lot warmer for them to set up there, even if it's in like 4 feet of water.
Yeah.
They'll get up there and they'll just get right onto the rocks where it's hotter. So I'm kind of hoping that'll happen, and I can get on the bank then and really go to work and go do what I like to do, is throw like a square bill or something like that.
What was the water clarity there?
It was clear. Clear.
I was going to say, typically though, if you've got some stained water, it'll tend to heat up a little faster. So, but now with that being clear, they probably will just gravitate toward those rocks if the sun pops out good and bright. If it pops out early enough in the day before you have to reel up and head to the weigh-in.
The best thing about it is though, we're taking off at 8 and we're weighing in until 4. We're weighing in at 4, so we've got basically all day long to figure something out. I'm really banking on the sun coming out, warming the rocks up, and maybe back to what you were talking about with the dirty water. We only ran about probably about a quarter of the way up the river. So I'm hoping if we can run up the river all the way, we'll find just a little bit dirtier water. And if we do that, then the water up there will warm up a lot faster.
Sure.
So I'm hoping we can get up there and get a mixture of the chunk rock warming up and the dirtier water warming up. So I'm hoping we can put something together with the weather they're giving.
Awesome. Well, folks, that's going to about do it for this week. And as Evan alluded to a little bit ago, the bass are biting here at Cave Run, them big greenings anyway. So if you're planning on wanting to get out and doing a little fishing here in the next few days or next week or so, be sure to at least think about coming to Cave Run and all that. And if you do, let us know and stop by and see us here at Hook Outdoors. And just be safe. I hope everyone has a good year and a good season. Catch a lot of fish. Everyone be safe out there. And just get outdoors with Hook Outdoors.